What's good? What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast. Today, we're getting back into relationships, and I know we've dug into that a little bit recently on this show. So today, as I talk to Beck Thompson, dating and relationship coach extraordinaire, founder of the Relationship Circle, and host of a podcast of the same name, we're going to talk about the business of relationship coaching, how she got into it, her transition from therapist to relationship coach, whether or not her time at uni helped her in delivering this service, and how do you market relationship coaching, given that it is a very subjective outcome for everyone who's involved in a relationship, be it that they are happy, unhappy, single, looking. It's such a wide market. So how does Beck find success in this area? How does she wind down after a long, emotionally taxing day coaching people in their relationships? And also, how is she starting to systemize that business, being a mum and looking for a business that creates the lifestyle she wants? Really fun conversation. Beck's awesome. She lives at a lovely beach town a few hours south of Sydney, and we talk about that as well. So I really hope you enjoy this one, guys. I did as usual. So here she is for you, Beck Thompson on Coaches to the Moon.
This is Coaches to the Moon, the only podcast you need to skyrocket your coaching business and create true impact on the world. Here's your host, Alex Morris.
Welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about relationships again today. That's 2 in a row, but we're going to be talking about it in a different way today because we have award-winning dating and relationship coach Beck Thompson on the line with us. She's also an international best-selling co-author and the founder of the Relationship Circle. And in her own words, it's a no BS relationship coaching program. We like to do no BS marketing. It sounds like we're on the same page. She's also launching a podcast tomorrow, which we're so excited about. So let's dig into it. Beck Thompson, good to have you here.
Thank you. What an intro.
Thank you so much. I made it up myself on the spot. Now, Beck, I've got to address something. The photo I have of you, you've got red hair, and now you have blonde hair.
Yeah, I did a branding shoot, my first branding shoot, and I had copper hair, and it actually took me so long to change over all of my booking systems and website, and people would get on the call with me and be like, is that you?
How funny.
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing. I'm updating a lot of mine with a beard. I didn't always have a beard. So
it actually makes it really hard to change your look a lot.
It's like changing an email. It's almost, when you are an absolute just role model for people like you and I, just putting our face out there all the time, just attention whores. It's difficult to change your look a little bit. That's why I have 11 different versions of this one white t-shirt. Anyway, this is about you, Beck. You're in Bateman's Bay. I forgot to mention that. You moved from Sydney to Bateman's. Why the move? Because, for Bateman's Bay, for context, people listening, what's that, 5 hours south of Sydney? Nice little beach town?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. When did you move and why?
Yeah, we moved about 2 years ago. Why? Well, it was the middle of lockdown and we weren't seeing anyone anyway. And we just always have wanted to move south. And my business is completely online, so I could move anywhere. So, yeah, we just did it and we love it.
Amazing. How's it working out for you?
Great. Yeah, it's nice and relaxed and chilled. I do miss convenience.
Right.
It'd be good to have Uber Eats if anyone wants to move down here and do some Uber Eats work. That would be good.
Do they not have Uber Eats down in Bateman?
We don't have any delivery service. No. I think Domino's is the only one who delivers.
Oh my word. How do you do it? It's like the Stone Ages. Where were you in Sydney?
I'm from the east and then moved south. I was in Sylvania just before we moved.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, so I'm a big fan of going somewhere a little less busy. I think that's a really, really good thing for the head and the mind. I feel for my friends who all work in the city and live in the city, I feel like too much stimulation. Especially like when you move during lockdown. That's a funny time where you work on a screen and then you wind down with a screen. And I think in the city, you work in the city and then you wind down in the city. And for me, I think it's really nice to have a bit of a disparity between, screens, podcasting and business, and then just sand and water.
Yeah, so, totally.
How do you wind down, Beck Thompson, after a long day of coaching?
Yeah, I've got a toddler, so it's very easy because he
Yeah.
comes home from kindy and then I'm all in mum land. But I do love yoga and I love, like you're right, we're right opposite the beach here, so I go for a lot of walks outside and just, yeah, I'm pretty good. I used to, my background's social work and therapy, and so I used to have a lot heavier of content that I would consume, I suppose, and so I had to just learn how to switch off. So I'm really good at switching off.
That's a very interesting topic to get into for the coaches out there who,
Yeah.
it when you first start coaching, you're suddenly taking on other people's problems as your own problems.
Yeah.
And during your therapy years, that must have been, I imagine, a relatively difficult thing to get used to when you come home to, as you said, switch off.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. It took me a while. I think I once, because I used to drive to a job, had a part in the drive where I'd allow myself to think about work till I got to this spot and then I'd stop thinking about work. And it just like took discipline, to be honest. And then I got into a technique of like washing, having a shower and washing the stuff down the drain, just being like, it's got to wash off me. Um, yeah, you have to. You have to. And if you feel like you're working harder than your clients, meaning you're thinking about it all the time, then I don't think you're doing it right.
Very interesting, because there's definitely like, service based guilt. Like we get it as marketers helping people run their ads. Coaches get it when someone's not getting the results that they hoped for, or something's not going right in their life. Definitely we can take it upon ourselves. So, I mean, therapy, as you mentioned, that's probably, you're dealing with some heavier stuff, but it does fall into the coaching space as well, where people tend to offload and vent things you weren't necessarily expecting
Yeah.
onto you, and a quick Zoom call can be 2 hours before you know it. So that's really interesting. So the technique of washing away the, I suppose, washing away the not the trauma, just the weight of the day. How did that work for you? And when you say discipline is important in disconnecting from the heaviness of coaching, how would you recommend someone else get started in doing that if they're struggling to do the same thing?
Yeah, I think when I said discipline, because I don't like that word now that I'm thinking about it, but I think more boundaries, like you got to have boundaries around like where you start and end and where a client starts and ends. And it's not, I think you just have to be as aware, like when you're doing coaching, you need to be working on yourself constantly to be a good coach. Like that just has to be part of the process, I think. And like the more you're aware of what's happening in your mind, in your body, all of that, then you can change things. But if you're not aware of it, you'll find yourself thinking, you'll be like, why am I not sleeping? Why am I like distracted or not present? It's because you've got these thoughts in your mind. So I think if you once you're aware of it, you can decide not to think about it anymore, or do some self-care, do something that, I don't know, allows time for you, because you have to have that space for you.
Well, you're a parent now, and you see the
Yeah.
same thing with your toddler, right? I imagine.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, totally. And it's important for me to show him that it's important to have time for yourself, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Just to kind of walk away when you're feeling you're getting to your edge a little bit, just to be able to say, babe, give me 20, or I'm going for a coffee in the sunshine, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Very, very important. And it brings you back, both in parenting and in coaching. It brings you back with more energy and focus to give to your client, and in this case, your toddler, who is also, feels like a client sometimes as well.
Yeah.
How's the business balance going for you? Do you feel like you had your business set up for being a parent before that came along, or did you have to then react to having your toddler daughter?
Yeah, son.
Your
Yeah.
son? Did you have to react to having your son and therefore set your business up in a way that works?
Yeah, I don't know. It definitely wasn't set up by the time he was born. I launched when I was pregnant with him. But in business, that doesn't mean I
Good
suddenly
move.
got 1,000 clients
Yeah.
and I was ready to go.
Yeah.
Um, it really wasn't until, I don't know, the last couple of years that it's been like that. And yeah, I constantly have to reevaluate how it's going because if he's sick, like he was sick all last week, so that was a giant juggle between my husband and I and fitting clients in and doing work and moving clients. And, I'm grateful for the flexibility and that I have incredible clients that a lot of them are parents, so they know, they understand
Mm.
it. But it's a constant juggle and moving and removing and yeah,
It
yeah.
is tough, isn't it? It is tough. So you said that when your son gets home from kindy, that point you're off the clock business wise.
Well, kind of.
Yeah,
Let me
kind of.
clarify. I have usually a 6 and 8 p.m. slot that's quite busy. So he'll come home. I'll generally finish around like 4,
Yep.
5. We have dinner. Then I'll have a 6 o'clock client. Then we'll do bed, bath time, and then I'll have an 8 o'clock client. But not every night of the week. But yeah, they are busy slots.
That's a lot of trust on an easy bedtime to have a client booked in
It's very
afterward.
good. He's actually a very good sleeper. That's one thing I'll
Right.
pride him on. Yeah.
So good. I've got twin 3-year-old daughters, and
Wow.
and I used to have clients. There was a point when they were kind of one where I could have a 7:30 p.m. client, but then since about they turned 2, I've just not done anything because you just never know what's going to happen,
Yeah. You've
especially
got two.
yeah. Well, when you take the sides off the cot as well, then sometimes they're up and about. It's
Yeah.
just it's really really tough to know. Really really cool, really cool, Beck. And sorry to just dig into the ins and outs of your life, but I suppose that's what we're here for. I
Relevant.
suppose
Yeah.
that's what we're here for. It's all about coaches, solopreneurs, people working from their computers in their offices at home, learning to do that in a way that is successful financially, but also successful for the lifestyle that they want. And can I ask you a question? You're a parent with a business. Do you ever look at friends or people you know who are maybe single and moving in business faster than you are? And how do you feel about that when you see people just crushing it? Does that come with any form of judgment on yourself when that happens? Or because I know I certainly get that sometimes. Well, if I
Yeah.
see even people I work with who are just, oh, I had an X amount of dollars a week, and I'm like, oh, here, I just paid $500 for a term of swimming lessons. So and I've been to the doctors 11 times.
Yeah. I've had a cold
How
10 times this year.
exactly. How does that play out in your head? And yeah, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I actually thought about this last week because I've got a really good friend down here who's a confidence coach and she doesn't have kids. I see the same thing. I'm like, gosh, she moves fast at stuff and doesn't have and I think I noticed it because my boy was home sick that week and I felt like I was in survival mode of just like juggling everything, looking after him, organizing everything else. And did I get into comparison? Maybe a little bit. I just think, I work with this amazing woman who's maybe 55 and she's crushing it at her career and she had kids really young and I'm not young, so I didn't have kids young. But it just showed me that there's no timeline around things. So I don't know. I just think that you get to things when you're meant to get to them. And I chose to have a kid, like very purposefully. He was IVF. So it's not like he was not an accident. Not that people don't want their children, but I'm so grateful for him. So I think I love being a parent and I love that I have a business that provides the flexibility to be able to be a great parent for him. So yeah, I don't know. I just think I'll get to it. And also, side note, when I do less work, I get further in my business.
Interesting.
When I'm out of the doing of everything, it grows bigger. So yeah,
Let's talk about that because that is something
yeah,
that some people will be like, tell me how, Beck
makes no
Thompson.
sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And I'm taking it that you're not coming at that from just when I detach from the outcome, it manifests things. It feels like, is that just more of
No,
a systems based? Do you have VAs? Do you delegate? What happens there?
yeah, both. Because I think what I more mean is when you're like so in something, like when you're like client after client after client, which is absolutely where I fall into a lot of the time because I have a lot of one-to-one clients, which is just that takes up a lot of time, but I love it. when you have the chance to be able to step back from your business, you can see what's working, what's not working. Where do I need to pivot? Like, what do I need to do differently? What can I launch now? When you're so busy in the doing, you don't have any capacity to be creative and to think differently.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's more what I mean.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So how do you keep the business going when you're in that space? What's your sort of staffing situation like? Do you have a team?
Yeah, I've now got a podcast team. Thank
Yeah.
goodness. I wanted to launch a podcast for so long and I've been putting it off because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And that it felt like too much work. So I hired an amazing team for that. So I literally just have to record the episodes and they're doing everything else, which is great.
So good.
And then I've got a social media woman who does all my social media stuff. So spoiler alert, not every post is mine, but she speaks my language very well, which is again something I put off for so long because I was like, I just want someone who writes like me, who thinks like me,
Yeah.
and then I can post when I want to post as opposed to feel like I need to do it all the time.
That's great. That's awesome. So the delegation thing is really interesting and a massive step in like you said, moving forwards. That social media, just organic content thing seems to be one of the first tasks that people delegate. Has that I've never been great with organic content. I just either I just don't do it. If someone else isn't doing it for me, I just don't post any organic content
Yeah.
because I've got plenty of stuff going on. What was that? What was that situation like for you when you decided, okay, I need to get some help here? And why did you choose organic social media as your first port of call?
Yeah, why did I choose? So I was speaking to another coach friend who was using this woman, and she just really liked the results she was getting and the work that she was doing. And so it's something that I wanted to do for ages. I mean, it just felt like the first step, to be honest. I don't know why I chose it first. There's lots of other things I want to do and want other people to do. But it's something I felt like it was taking up a lot of my brain and I didn't really have capacity for it. And so I just wanted to find someone I just wanted stuff to be on my page, not necessarily to drive people to my page, but if clients were to go to my page or future clients were to go to my page, they'd know what I was about. So it was more like brand awareness than anything.
I agree with that on organic social stuff. A lot of clients that we've got, for example, they come to us to get paid ads going and they say, how much should I be posting on Facebook as well? And I just say, just enough to let people know you care, that you're active. I don't think you need to be doing, I mean, what do I know? But I've never seen as much traction as you'd expect from doing the 4 posts a day on every platform, that sort of thing. Now we're down to maybe like 3 a week on every platform. But it's very, very draining. And, unless you're Gary V who just bleeds content, then it can be pretty rough. And I think it just needs to be enough to let people know you're showing up and understand your brand. So where do your clients come from? Is it a lot through organic content? How do you find your relationship? How do you find your relationship coaching clients, Beck?
Yeah, now it's a lot of word of mouth, I think, because I've been around a little bit. But strangely enough, a lot of people say they Googled and found me, which I don't know how because I've never built any SEO into my website or anything. And my website I built myself. That needs doing next. But that's quite often what a lot of people say to me.
Interesting. Yeah. So they found you via Google. And so I wonder if they're searching relationship coaches or if they're searching, I mean, that's your title, right? Relationship coach. It's not like a couples therapist or anything.
No, yeah. Now I say dating and relationship coaching because initially I was just doing couples and then I moved my work into more singles.
Okay.
And now I do both.
Okay, interesting. And so when people find you, what sort of situation are they usually in when they reach out for your help?
Yeah, so probably 2 separate ones. If they're single, well, look, the thread is that they're kind of sick of repeating the same patterns. That's the kind of wording that I get. Like they feel stuck, they feel frustrated, they don't know what they're doing wrong. In couples, it's a lot about communication, conflict, again, just getting stuck in that cycle and that dynamic and not knowing what to do differently because they're blaming each other. And singles, a lot, it's, I'm attracting the same type of guy or I can't get past the first date, or, some pattern that keeps repeating that they're sick of.
Okay. And so you've got a toddler. You mentioned the husband before. You've been married and in a relationship for at least a few years, it sounds like.
Yeah, we've been married 9 and together, I don't know, a very long time since I
Oh,
was 17
congratulations.
and I'm 40. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. You're hiding it well. You're hiding it well. So that's rock and roll. Amazing. So in terms of that one, I've always found that interesting. Relationship coaching for singles from a married person,
Yeah.
or relationship coaching from a single person. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a question you get every now and then as well. How do you, as someone who's been in a relationship for 10 plus years, help people in the dating scene, where I imagine that has changed so much since the last time you or I ever went on a date?
Totally. Yeah. Funny enough, I never get asked it, but feel free to ask me, clients. Because it's not about the detail. It's not about what site you go on or where you're going to meet them or what your profile picture looks like or I just don't believe in any of that. So the work that I do is mainly getting people to trust their own intuition and make their own judgments. So to equip them up with the skills to go forward so they don't need me, essentially. And a lot of the time, the dating stuff is about self-worth. So it's about what's underneath all of what's happening as opposed to the surface level stuff. So I don't really need to know. Sure, I got approached by this company the other day saying, can you, do you want to partner with us? It was a dating site. And I said, sure, I'd love to know more information. And then they said, well, can you just post a reel promoting us? And I said, I don't know anything about your company. So no, I'm not going to do that. So I don't need to know the detail of that stuff. I think, they could, because also dating apps vary around the whole country. Depends where you live as to who's on them. Like, that's detail
Right.
I'm never going to know, even if I'm single.
Yeah, got it. That's interesting. That's a very similar way that we approach marketing as well. People always ask, what's the best platform? How many times should I be posting? What software should I be using? And it's more so about the big idea, the big picture of your business. And it sounds like it's the same sort of thing for singles looking for a date. Goodness me. Okay. Have you ever been to a point in your business when you were, new mum, that sort of thing, or maybe when there's been some financial instability where you're taking on clients you shouldn't be taking on just for the money?
Yeah, for sure in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't start with dating and relationship coaching either. I started doing life coaching like years ago. And I definitely had clients that were not relevant or appropriate or that, yeah, absolutely.
Probably a little bit similar to people who are desperate to find a partner
Yeah.
and are going on dates with the wrong kind of people.
Yep, absolutely.
How interesting. So do you think that there is potentially a common thread of self-worth and intuition that we could use to help ourselves in both situations?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you can trust, like, one, get clear on who you want to work with. So I took a year off in between doing life coaching and doing this because I didn't know where I wanted to head. I had a client I had a business coaching for, which, come on, I'd literally just started my coaching business, that poor woman. And like health coaching and all these random things. And I had to take a year off to go, what do I actually want to do? And I found myself loving relationships and the dynamics of relationships. And granted, I have a background in like doing therapy work, so it gives me that kind of level up, I suppose. But I think when I got really specific around who I wanted to work with and what I wanted to do, and trusted that I was good at that and that, I knew what I was doing, then that's when I had clients that were in alignment with what I was doing. But I had to trust myself and believe in myself. So yeah, it has a lot to do with self-worth.
Got it. It can be scary when you sort of niche down a little bit to one thing, because people think that it's going to pigeonhole you and you're not going to get enough clients. I don't want to close off from people and not be able to help them, but it actually can be, it's way more effective in getting clients, right? Because then you can tailor your content, your message, your offer, all around a much more narrow field of problems and desires. So your content now and the way you do market, is there a particular, given that you have basically one problem you're solving, which is, re-energizing happiness and relationships, that sort of thing. But you have two different markets, single versus couples. How do you approach that in the way you make content, the way you market, and to make sure that you are kind of covering all bases, I suppose?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think something I'm probably still getting my head around. But I do think there's common threads that go between them. Like quite often people are lonely if they're in relationships with others, and they're lonely when they're single. There's still a lot of self-worth stuff, like boundaries is relevant in both singles and in couples. Like there's still a lot of crossover that happens between the two of them. And like my ideal client is still like probably a woman aged, well, it is a woman aged like 35 to 38, and whether they're single or in a relationship, they still kind of look the same.
Yeah, sure thing. Similar stage of life, that sort of thing. Got it.
Yeah.
Finding those common threads is good. That's awesome. And I've just seen something on your website I really love, which is awesome. And so I hope that this is still relevant. The Dare to Date membership, is this still going on? Going strong?
It's on pause.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see that in the Dare to Date membership, you had monthly cocktail nights.
We
to
did,
dish,
yeah.
to dish dirt on the dates you've had.
We did. Yeah, well, it's going to be back up and running. It was after people did my Up Level Love course. The aim was for them to go into that membership, and they did. It's just when COVID happened, that course got put on hold because no one was dating.
Oh, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. That must have been a nightmare time for you.
Well,
when-
it was funny. It got busier because couples had more problems.
Thank goodness. There we go. We need to stay in a perpetual form of crisis so that, to keep Beck's business growing. That's awesome though. How fun. So the monthly cocktail nights was such a funny thing though. Like those little touches that just make you unique is great. I get the feeling, Beck, that you don't take yourself too seriously.
Oh yeah, no, good choice. No, I don't.
which is a good thing.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important. It's also important in the work that I do because it doesn't have to be so serious all the time. Like even if we're working on serious issues, it can still have an area of lightness and fun, and because fun and play is important in relationships, so I think it's really important in the work too.
Yeah, I get that. Can you give me, obviously, you can't use names or anything, but can you give me an example of a particularly tough story that you've been able to turn around for someone?
Yeah, because I just had a client who's been in so now she's in a relationship. But when I met her, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, she just kept like attracting these guys who were treating her like rubbish. And they were very different in the way that they treated her. But it's interesting when you're like, I'm sure you noticed it, but when you're getting someone to tell you their story about whatever, because you're looking at it from the outside in, you can see the patterns and the themes that happen, right? So often when you're in it, you can't see those things. So she couldn't see the threads that were happening. But when I got the history of all the relationships, I was like, these people are treating you like crap and you've got no boundaries with them. She was incredible at cutting them off pretty quickly, these men that were hanging around in her life. And we just did a lot of work on boundaries and self-worth. And she then, like now she's with this guy. They've been together maybe 2 months. They're talking of moving in together. And she said like, this is the healthiest relationship she's ever had. And it was so cool when I heard that. I was like, wow, that's really cool for her. She's never had a healthy relationship. And this is the first one she's been in. But she did a lot of work. I have to say that. She did a lot of work. The work happens not with me. It happens when you're outside of the session. So she did a lot of that work outside the session and held her boundaries strong and felt really good about it.
Totally. I think that's a really important thing to say, is that the work doesn't happen in the session with the coach. It's like having a personal trainer. That's not where you get the big results in that 1 hour a week in the gym. It's the other 23 hours a day at home, what you're eating, what you're doing, how much you're walking and sleeping. And I mean, when you have clients who are not getting the results they want, and maybe they start to mention that to you and go a little bit into that blame mode, how do you approach that, if you know that maybe they've not been, holding up their half of the deal?
Yeah. Well, as I said, like I'm no BS. I usually call people out on their SHIT. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this. So, but I usually call them out because,
Yeah.
and if people aren't getting the results they're getting, that's not due to me. Like that's due to them not doing the work that they need to be doing. So it's usually a bit of curiosity around like, well, what's been happening? Like what's getting in the way of you doing it? And sometimes I'll tell people to do stuff, and if they're people pleasers, I've had people say this, yeah, I'll do it. Yep, I'd love to do that. And then get to the next session. No, I haven't done it. Why not? Oh, I just said I'd do it because I knew you wanted me to say, no, don't ever do that. Tell me that you don't want to do it. I need you to be like, if you're going to practice your non-people pleasing, practice it on me because I'm not going to be angry at you. We'll just find another approach. But, sometimes people find stuff a little bit scary and it's not manageable. And so I rely on that constant communication of like, you tell me what's okay with and what you're not okay with, and then we can go from there. And that's also like teaching them on the side about how to have boundaries and how to speak up for themselves and all of that.
Massive stuff inside the relationship coaching that you do. Yeah.
Yep.
Speak up for yourself, have boundaries. Really interesting. Yeah. That's a very common thread in coaching as well. But I think it does come down to how much authority people believe you have as well. Because I think that, I get it all the time. I have clients who don't call their leads, that sort of things. They don't make any sales and they're like, I haven't had any clients. It's like, well, here's 250 numbers and conversations you could have started, and obviously we want to help as much as we can on our end, but there's a balance as well. I do feel like if I was Gary Vaynerchuk running their marketing, if it was Tony Robbins doing their relationship coaching, they'd probably put in a little more effort. They'd probably do exactly what they said, and maybe that comes from our end as well. Just maybe not positioning ourselves as enough of an expert or enough authority. I don't know, Beck, what do you reckon we can do as coaches to make sure our clients take our advice more seriously and more to heart and put in the work themselves as well?
Yeah, I think you just got to, I think I'm pretty confident when I hop on a call with someone, and I'm also okay if in the first session they decide that I'm not for them. Like I'm just real about who I am and how I work, and I usually go pretty hard in the first session so that they know that this is what it's like. I'm not going to be all nice guy and and I am lovely. It's not that, but I'm kind and firm, and it's important to know that this is not like, when I did therapy, there was a lot of like sitting with stuff and being in the past with stuff, and I'm pretty direct, and so people don't really, unless I'm telling them to do something they're not comfortable with, they kind of do it because one, they're paying.
Yeah.
Why would they pay me and not do the work? And two, that usually come to me when they're at a point of like, oh my God, I am so over my own stuff. Like I need to get out of my own way. Otherwise, they're generally action takers.
Well, I was about to check into that because people saying I need to get out of my own way, that's pretty self-aware. But do you get a lot of clients who have done personal development before, or do you get a lot of newbies to the space?
Probably mixture, probably 50-50 to be honest. Yeah.
Okay.
Some people say, oh God, I've never done, what is coaching? Relationship coaching is very new here.
Yeah.
It's big in America, but people will quite often think that, one of the first things I always do is clarify that I'm not a therapist. Like that's my background, but that's not how I practice. And this is what I find is the difference. And most people are like, cool, that's how I want to work. I've probably only had like one or two. They're like, oh yeah, no, I really want to be my own BS. Not that there's not a place for therapy, there absolutely is, but it's just not my space.
Yeah.
So probably a mixture.
Yeah, got it. And so when you're just introducing people, my coach friend calls them muggles, people who are not used to personal development. How do you approach that? Do you need to coach them in a different way to kind of introduce them to all this challenging behavior that you're giving them, or do you just go straight in?
I don't know that I treat anyone differently. Maybe that's a mistake. I don't know. I
No?
do approach people with a lot of curiosity and get them to be really curious about things. So I think that that opens doors sometimes instead of like, and I am never going to be more of an expert than them, right? They know their life
Yeah.
more than me. So if I'm saying, I always say something with like, I'm going to say this, it might not land. You just need to take from it what you feel is right and then run with that because you're the expert in your life, not me. Like I can't meet someone for 45 minutes and go, "Oh, I know what you need to change in your life." Like
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Do you find that often people have the answer kind of somewhere in the back of their head just by asking those questions they don't ask themselves?
yeah, yeah, not always in the first session, but yeah, absolutely. If I send them off with some homework to do some exploring or, thinking about what's happened, or they generally do. Yeah. It's cool to
That's
watch
exciting.
those like light bulb moments.
Yes, absolutely. And do you use any of those modalities? Like I guess therapy. You've got proper therapy behind you. I was going to ask about things like NLP and hypno and timeline therapy that a lot of coaches use. Are you just? But you're a qualified university
I am.
recognized therapist, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, I am. I definitely use a lot of different things. I could not tell you where I've pulled them from because I've learned so many different modalities over time that I don't. I remember listening to Esther Perel, who's an amazing relationship psychologist, talk to someone over the years, and because psychology used to be like you practiced in that mode, and then someone else practiced in that mode, and you didn't really mix them. And she was like, "No, I pull them from everywhere," and I feel like that's me, but I would have absolutely no idea where I pulled them all from. Yeah.
Doesn't matter really, does it?
No, no.
You get the job done. You've got
Yeah.
the tool for the job,
Yeah.
which is exciting and very important. The do you feel that the university education, the more traditional form of learning and getting that degree has been effective for you to be better at what you do now?
Oh, good question. I think university was useless. It didn't offer any practical skills.
Yeah.
It offered me a qualification that people respect. I'll say that. People
Yeah.
often say, "What's your background?" And when I say that I've gone to uni, it gets me more respect than saying I'm just a coach. Not okay, but it's what happens and it's people's perception. Um, I definitely learnt more by practicing therapy and by doing roles, like for working for jobs where I put those skills into practice. So that's been beneficial, absolutely. And it's great because I know when someone's not for me, or if there is too much trauma or mental health issues, then they're not, they need to work with someone different. It doesn't happen often, but I'm glad that I'm equipped to know when I shouldn't be taking on a client and that they might need more support than me.
Yeah, that takes a lot of confidence from you as well.
Yeah.
And not well, a lot of confidence, but also very little ego to say that this is not a job for me. This is a psychiatry job, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well,
So
I just think it's dangerous otherwise, to be honest. These are people's lives. Like, it's not okay to be working with someone that you don't think you can support. And, like, I probably can support them, but it's not what I want to do anymore.
interesting. Yeah, my wife had a really rough time a few years back, and started getting on. She had a therapist, and they got her onto a prescription of sort of low-level meds, that sort of thing, which really massively helped. But the only time she was actually able to reduce them and keep it going was when she went and worked with a more alternative coach who did a lot of just mindset and meditation work with her, which was really interesting because I've seen both sides work really well in her life. And so I can definitely see arguments for both. And I think that it's a great abundant mindset to say, okay, this is not a client for me. This is a client for someone else. And there's plenty more coming my way as well.
Yeah, well, they are, right? Like, it's so fun. Like, I know I've been there, like, when I first started business, in thinking that there's only so many people out there, but there's a million people out there. Like, and you think of like, everyone's in a relationship or wants a relationship, so I'm good there.
Yeah.
And like, so many other fields of whatever you're coaching in, there's always going to be enough clients out there for you. Like, this doesn't need to be competition.
Yeah, 100%. I used to be in the health coaching space. And disclaimer before this story, a sentence that may or may not annoy some people. But I used to be in the health and nutrition coaching, and through that, you get into things like network marketing, where everyone's doing the same job. They're all health and nutrition coaching. And I asked a friend of mine, like, dude, we've got very, very similar niches. We're posting similar content. You know, do you think we should kind of try and be more different? And he said, listen, mate, there's plenty of fat women out there. And not a very sensitive way of saying it, but a very abundant
Glad you put a
mindset.
disclaimer in there.
Yeah, very, very abundant mindset. And years later, he's still doing very well. He's I think he was saying it as a bit of a joke, but it was yeah. But like you said, you know, there's always going to be plenty of people to work with. Even in a small community, even Australia. Australia's a tiny, tiny country in terms of population. Have you ever run any ads or anything on Facebook or Instagram?
Yes, very badly. Years
What happened?
ago, I've given up now. That's also something maybe I'll hire you for. But I ran. One was very successful actually when I did it once, but then I tried to do the same ad years later, and that massively failed. It's hard to run dating ads because Facebook thinks that I'm a dating service.
True.
So that's where it's just like many things, you don't have to know everything, right? Like I've just
Yeah.
given up on wanting to know because every time I learnt something, something new would come out, and I just decided that I am not an expert in that, and I do not wish to
Oh, yeah.
become one.
It's always changing. It's super annoying. Super annoying. Especially the dating thing. That is rough as well, because that's not what you're promising. They just find those words, algorithm pops in, it says, hang on, you're flagged for doing something that you're not doing.
Yes.
Really annoying. But yeah, people always they think, oh, Australia's too small of a market. I'm going to run out of people. But you really just not. Like, go into America, instantly your ads reach 10 times as many people.
Yeah, wow.
But it also becomes much more of a needle in a haystack thing as well. Just being in front of more people doesn't necessarily mean more clients, more success, because you're dealing with a lot more noise as well.
Yeah, isn't it? It's really interesting because I have quite a few clients, single women that live in like regional towns or rural towns, and so they're like, "Well, there's no men here. You know, it's only the men who come to drink at the pub or the farmers."
Wow.
And then I have women from the city that are like, they have the same issues, but they're in a bigger city, so it's not the amount of people because. Like anyone could walk into the pub or come to I had a yoga teacher that she lived very regionally, and I was like, you don't know who's going to come to your class. Like you just don't know what could happen. Right. And yeah, it was interesting because I had the same issues living in very different areas.
That's funny. It's just all perception, isn't it? And
Yeah.
that's a real scarcity mindset, I suppose. Living in the middle of Sydney and saying there's no men around.
Yep.
Where you throw a stone and you will hit one.
Yeah.
I suppose there's no men that I'm looking for around. Or, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of parallels today in between how people look for clients and how people look for partners.
Yeah.
Which is super duper interesting. But it all seems to come back to how you think about it and what you're offering rather than what the other person is doing. Yeah. And kind of refining your own message, I suppose, and your offer.
Yeah. So true. You have to. I've been watching The Voice because I love a reality show, but a guy, Sebastian, always talks about like, you know, making it your own song and singing it in your way as opposed to singing like the artist. And it took me, I think, a few years to be like, who am I as a coach, as opposed to like, how does Esther Perel speak? How does John Gottman speak? Like, how do all the top people speak about relationships? No, what do I want to say? You know, what do I believe about it? But that did take me a little bit of time to get comfortable in my own skin.
Well, it's really tough when you're focusing, you know, you're reading your book and you start to spend, you know, a week or two constantly listening to this one person's voice. It's tough to not get into their headspace and to start doing things like them. Especially in the early years when you're looking for, like you said, you're looking for your voice, looking for your offer. Difficult to not just flap around from, like you said, John Gottman to Esther Perel, and then in business from, you know, a more abundant, laid-back person versus a real hustle and grind person. You find yourself just flipping to and from. What do you think it takes to get past that? Just time, experience, confidence? What is it?
Probably all three. Yeah, I think
All
it
three.
definitely took me time, and it took a bit of guts, I suppose, to say my message to clients and to see if it got heard, like to really own it. Like
Yeah.
I had to move away from the shoulds of the dating world around what you need to be doing in order to find a date, to like, no, trust your own gut around it. And like, I really believe that. And I don't know, just it's still okay to read all the things and learn all the things and then take from them what you want and leave the rest.
Yeah, you'll always have that one little thing, like in that movie Limitless, that just you saw years ago and then just pops out right at the right time.
Yeah.
So that's why we should keep learning. I see you have a fully stacked bookshelf behind you.
Many I have not read, a warning, but they look beautiful.
Yeah, you gotta have it. You gotta have the bookshelf behind you on a podcast. Otherwise, you don't have a coaching podcast. And I see that you've got your book up the top there, The Conscious You,
Yeah.
co-authored, Amazon bestseller.
Yeah.
Right at the top there, just taking pole position.
The only one I've got left.
So good, so good. That's exciting, but that happened a while ago. I am excited just before we go, just to dig into what is your podcast about? How are you approaching that?
Yeah, it's so cool. I'm really excited. I'm pumped about it. So it'll be initially just me speaking about different topics, and the first kind of lot that are coming out are all about being single, and the ones that are coming out tomorrow around boundaries, self-worth, people-pleasing, when you're attracting the same type of guy. So I don't know, I feel like I've been coaching for long enough now that I've heard the same story over and over again. So I'm hoping that the advice, the support that I give will reach people, because so many people are going through the same thing and they're feeling stuck, and I just want people to feel unstuck and get support.
Amazing. So what's the name of the podcast?
It's called The Relationship Circle, same as my business.
Very consistent branding from you, Beck Thompson. I
With
love
SEO.
that. I love that about you. How good. And I'd be very, very interested to know how the podcast producing goes, because we've recently hired the videographers we use, Triple Effect Video. Shout out. They've started taking on our podcast and kind of clipping it all up and upload it on all the different platforms. Massive time saver. They always find the best clips from it. And I'm really excited to hear how that goes for you, delegating the podcast.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's something I've wanted to do for years. So I'm really excited that it's getting off the ground.
Yeah. So good for content podcasts. You do one long form conversation per week and you get so much out of it. Network, especially when you have guests on, right? You network with people. You got a great reason to reach out to someone you want to work with without saying some sleazy DM. It can be like, hey, I love what you're doing. Come on the podcast.
Yeah.
Boom, we're friends.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited for you. Well, the Relationship Circle podcast, the Relationship Circle as a business, programs galore. I'm excited for when the cocktail nights come back, Beck.
Me too.
Yeah, I bet you are. That sounds absolutely rock and roll. Hey, we've been going for 45 minutes now. Yeah. Just like that. So thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your insights, I guess, into the synchronicity between relationships and business. It's been really fun to have you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. Well, we'll be back next week, guys. Actually, no, it's Tuesday. I'll be back this week with another episode of Coaches to the Moon. And next week, again, as promised, some more incredible guests like Beck to teach us how they have achieved success in this very harsh world of coaching. But we love it to bits. Once again, Beck Thompson, thank you so much for being here. We'll put all your links in above, around, depending on where you're watching this. And if you are watching this right now, I love you to bits for that. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Peace out. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If you love our guests, then in the show notes of this episode, you can find their socials, you can follow them, you can learn more about all the free resources and programs they've got. I highly recommend you do it. Until then, thank you so much. I'll be back here next week with Coaches to the Moon. Have an amazing day. Peace out.
Coaches to the Moon will be back next week. Until then, reach us on Facebook at To The Moon Digital Marketing.